All right, welcome in. The Pittsburgh Steelers need a new wide receiver more than ever as they return from Ireland. Why we believe something is going to happen, just a matter of when and what. We have the latest on A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jakobi Meyers, Xavier Legette, and more Steelers fans. Here we go.
Van to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
Yeah, welcome in. I'm Gavin Dawson, along with New Bear Lesniewski, the all-academic SEC lineman at Kentucky, brother. Welcome in. We do have, about 5 weeks till trade deadline, November 4th. I feel like something's going to happen with the Steelers, just with everything cooking. Now, Calvin Austin comes home hurt. Jonnu Smith still under 1 yard per target in air yards. It's unbelievable how they've not been able to utilize him more. I think it's really time to get serious about addressing this wide receiver core after a couple of, near hits in the offseason. They're still needing it, and I think the need's bigger than ever. It's just a matter of who they're going to go get.
Yeah, who or whom. That's we talk about vernacular, talking about whether it's, Yinzer or, where you grew up, where I grew up, where you live, where I am, where we've been, everything in between, and how you go look at this thing is chaos. We're about to enter like trade season on steroids because something has to change if they're not going to play Roman Wilson. If we're not going to get Roman Wilson season, this is the time where they should throw the gauntlet down and say, we took this guy in the third round. We thought he was a steal. He was in the doghouse. He was hurt. He had a great offseason. Everyone loved him in the summer. They were comparing him to all kinds of great players. And now here we are because Calvin Austin is going to be in a sling for a couple of weeks. And the thing that I really lean into is that we saw DK where in the slot over 50% of the time. That's where the big splash play came from. You give him all that room to run. He runs away from everyone. You know how much easier that is if there's someone else out wide and you can interchange and play off. Jonnu Smith ain't that guy. And if you're not going to put Freiermuth in the seam and let him go bang heads against Tampa 2 and him and DK play off each other, unless something like that is coming, unless you're going to say we're going to put 88 in the slot and go let him headbang and DK is going to go out wide and then we're going to move those two dudes around and play some games, because now everyone has seen that. Now you're going to see teams adjust to DK in the slot. You have to have an answer out wide.
Yeah, and on Roman Wilson, man, I feel like chances are better that maybe Calvin Austin's injury isn't that bad, and that's hard to say. But Faribaugh tweeting today, Calvin Austin was in the facility. He was not in a sling. I think he's probably going to miss a couple of games, and depending on how the Bengals game's a win. Browns game should be a win. I guess they're going with Dylan Gabriel this week, so maybe things set up decently for you to be all right. But I like what you're saying about DK Metcalf. And yes, Metcalf's a guy that can go up over anybody. He's a guy that can outrace anybody. But if you get the passing concepts together and you're actually clearing out a zone or making a safety, make a tough decision on which guy he's going to get, and they bust it, then you turn DK Metcalf into an unstoppable force.
Yeah, and when we go through the machinations of this, and I don't even care where you want to start. I know the thumbnail was one of the funnest ones to make this week because you start talking about who could it be? Behind door number one, all the way through, whatever we can crunch into this podcast is every dude has something else that's working for the Steelers, meaning there is injury, meaning there is a fire sale about to happen because the team stinks, meaning the team is undefeated and the guy is still pouting. There are all kinds of reasons. They're not just rumors that, we could go 15 deep right now and probably, the first 7, 8, 10 names are guys who have been at least Pro Bowl, if not all pro, or who are right there to play as the perfect complement to 4.
Well, let's go ahead and get this party started. It was a cryptic message from a superstar wide receiver, A to Z Sports.
I like superstar. If we're going to talk about word superstar, I like
superstar. That. Well, I think some Eagles fans might feel like he's a superstar right now for wanting out of this situation. It's crazy that he's 4-0 and he's a Super Bowl champion. He still isn't happy, and we can get to his mindset and the why on that here shortly. But yeah, he had this Bible Bible tweet. Basically, here you go. If you're not welcome, not listened to, quietly withdraw, don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way. So I think what needs to happen for this A.J. Brown thing to take a step towards more legitimacy is an absolute demand for a trade. I don't think we're going to get there, but what would happen if this team started losing? And I bring that up because in 2023, they did. They were 10-1. Things got weird behind the scenes. The pressure, the expectations, maybe some of the toxic relationships that were going on broke them down. In Dallas, we were hoping that the same would happen last year, and it damn near did till A.J. Brown cracked open that book and, showed that he's a quiet and wise man, stoic man. And so is Jalen Hurts. And I think they put it aside for the betterment of the team and to get that thing done. But, winning a Super Bowl makes you fed. Being hungry makes you sacrifice. And what happens when you get fed? That's why managing success is more difficult as an organization or as a coach than managing failure, because failure is going to, if it doesn't break a team apart, it's going to galvanize. It's going to make the mission for everybody very clear. Once you start winning, people worry about credit and how important they are for the team and how much they're getting paid for this championship that they've delivered to the organization. So all that to say, what we need is over the month of October for the Eagles to lose some games and maybe have a couple of injuries. I'm not rooting for that. I got in trouble in San Francisco a couple of years back. They thought I was rooting for a Christian McCaffrey injury. I would never do that. But hey, football's a violent and physical game, and injuries happen. And if a couple happen to the Eagles, they already let go Mekhi Becton from the offense, one of the best offensive linemen they had last year, and like 5 good players off their defense because they couldn't afford to keep this train rolling. So if they get to a point where they're like, man, we're banged up, maybe the Super Bowl's not in the cards, and A.J. Brown is really pissed now because he's not getting the ball and we're losing, maybe it could make sense to Philadelphia. But right now, from a Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni perspective, you say, that's nice. He's mad again. But everything's going to be fine because we're familiar with this bumpy ride. Something's got to change course for the Eagles to be convinced we're not winning the Super Bowl. We better get something from this guy and sort of look at rebuilding.
Do you have the screenshot of his Instagram post where he talks about what you just said about the hunger and where it comes from? And yeah. So
let me get that up here for you.
In this, it's a long post, and he's a bit of a writer if he's a reader at all. And as you go through his socials and think about the language that he uses, I think it was the book of Mark that he quoted this week. Mark my words, I think you're dead wrong. I think they need to keep winning, and he just needs to quit getting the ball or keep not getting the ball. Because if they keep winning without him dominating, and you read stuff like this, where he's literally saying, I'd never been a champion, and now that I am, I realize my thrill comes from dominating. He wants the ball. He wants to eat. And if his plate isn't full, he's going to stay pissed off. There's only so many books you can read. There's only so many times you can go to that well.
Yeah. And this is kind of in reference to what he said after the championship parade was everybody's going to say that I'm just into stats and I only care about myself and catching the ball. I don't care about winning. You were wrong about that. And you also got to say I'm a mother bleeping champion. Well, before the season started, here's this post where he's saying, I've never been a champion at the highest level before. I thought my hard work would be justified by winning it all. It wasn't. My thrill for this game comes when I dominate. It's the hunt that does it for me. He said, I tried to feel how everyone made it seem to be a champion. Unfortunately, it was short-lived, 2 days to be exact. So he's kind of explaining why he said that at the championship parade, that look at me, I'm a champion. I don't care about stats. He's doubling back on that and becoming like the first superstar to say the quiet part out loud or the private part out loud, that it's probably more important for me to dominate than to win. And I think a lot of players feel about that. I don't really blame A.J. Brown because I'll tell you what makes great players great is it just does not compute in reality to them if they're not awesome and they become obsessed with it. That I think it's part of the delusion that separates players from all like A.J. Brown's been twice.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? I mean, PFF had him as the number 1 wide receiver coming into the season, and we kind of balked at that based on the numbers, based on the splits, based on the way they want to play. And now it's only gotten worse. Like any argument for him to be in the same conversation with those other guys is a moot point, because when he's there, when they force feed him, it's so obvious how good this dude is.
Yeah.
And when they don't, it's almost insane that they're 4-0, because it's not like anybody else is just popping off and dominating. And, George Pickens has outperformed Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown together by himself.
Yeah.
And
went off the other night.
You go through the counting stats, right? Which is something that, this is a guy, look, man, you start building this case, there's a ton of connective tissue, him and Artie Smith. Rookie A.J. Brown, sophomore A.J. Brown, back-to-back 1,000-yard years, like 17.5 yards a catch, 10 tutties on 60-plus catches on average in 15 games a year. He was dealing with some knee stuff early and, battling some of the rookie stuff that you go through going from Saturday to Sunday. And Artie helped him get right real quick. He got paid in Philly because of what he did in Tennessee. And he in his mind, going back to Ole Miss, opposite DK Metcalf. You look at this dude being around other dudes, he knows he's one of one. So when you don't feed those guys, that's when you get the recipe for disaster, even when you're winning. We've seen it before, Terrell Owens. We've seen it before, late stage Randy Moss with the Patriots. Like, pick your favorite receiver. Eventually, Jerry Rice went to the other side of the bay.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And, I think maybe as the next branch on this topic tree, we got to talk about what expectations would be like. How would this work in Pittsburgh? And they've played, rock fight football. Would that be basically trading one set of problems for a different set of problems if you're A.J. Brown? And maybe that's possible. We'd have to, wait to see what that would look like. But I think Aaron Rodgers wants to throw it 45 times. He wants to have wide receivers good enough that he can put the ball in the air and let them go make a play. Even if he's got to throw it early in the clock, he can still get it down there quite a ways when you got a guy like DK Metcalf or A.J. Brown running for you.
Well, the same way you talk about trading one set of problems for another, how about trading one solution for a different kind of fix, in as much as if you've trotted 11 out one way and 4 out the other, or you put both of them to the same side, what coverage are you going to play? Because, oh, by the way, we're going to have Mount Washington, and maybe we even play Spencer Anderson, and we just say, here's what we're going to do. Forget 12 and 13. We got these two dudes, plus the 6th offensive lineman and Mount Washington. It doesn't even matter who's healthy in the running back room, because you're going to have to pick your poison. Do you want to seriously go one-on-one with either DK or A.J. Brown if you load this box? Or are you going to dare, let's just call him the greatest quarterback of this generation after Tom Brady, and Tom Brady himself said he's the greatest to ever spin it, Mr. Rodgers, to just beat you death by 1,000 paper cuts?
I think the new challenge for offenses is, can we pass them into a light box? It used to be, can we run them into man coverage? Now that doesn't work that well. But when you can come out passing, I think it would make your running game even better, come to life even more. And we got to spend some time talking about how much better it was on Sunday.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you have to love about this conversation, is all the warts or all the inconsistencies or all the counting stats that you don't like, or the bad tape, or the almost a really bad play because Broderick Jones just got turnstiled again. Week to week, you start seeing things from guys where you go, hey, you know what? This light goes on, we're going to be real good. And if it all comes together, it's going to be really tough to beat. And when you see a guy like Kenneth Gainwell plug and play and do things that haven't been done in 7 years in a black and gold uniform and not miss a beat when everyone was so concerned about what Warren wasn't doing, here comes Kenny Gainwell, one of the best low-key off-season signings. And you talk about the pros, professional players that look at Skoranek playing dirty, and look at anybody that you want to go through. Even Caleb Johnson had a couple of really nice runs that he put on film where he gets to touch the ball, gets to feel some success on Sunday. All that stuff is an exclamation point when you put another dude outside opposite DK. That changes the way that the math has to math for whoever's playing defense.
Okay, we got to get to some other players that we're going to talk about as well, but I do want to get one thing clear. It sounded like maybe some Steelers Homer hopium I was just picking up bits and pieces on social media and clips from different radio shows and stuff, but there's no way in HE double hockey sticks that the bird turds, as I call them, by the way. I've tried to get that nickname flying around North Texas for a number of years. I don't know if you want to pick up and run with that there in Western Pennsylvania, but that's what I call the Eagles out of Philadelphia. But there's no way they would trade you A.J. Brown for Alex Highsmith. Maybe if he had followed up 2022 with more double-digit sack seasons, that would be realistic. But, like, were they really talking about that, like a one-for-one player swap?
So I think that the narrative throughout the day really was there's no way this is going to happen. And a lot of the local talk has been about Alan Lazard or pick your other Aaron Rodgers, yesteryear BFF du jour, guys like Curtis Samuel, who are in witness protection on some depth chart because everybody eats in Buffalo, and circling back to Jacobe Meyers as talk about professional wide receivers, talk about dudes who would be great compliments, talk about great scheme fits, guys who also asked out, and guys who also want to get paid. So like I was talking about a few minutes ago, there's a ton of things that go into every single possible trade. The fence that I'm sitting on, just to be abundantly clear, is if you're not going to give us Roman Wilson season and find out if this dude can play at all, then you got to do whatever it takes to go all in on this season, because it looks like from week to week, this team is going to be able to figure out a way to win. And the AFC in totality is ripe for the picking. I think the Highsmith stuff comes from a place of, if everybody's screaming there's no way this deal ever gets done, well, what would it take? Because if it's not just picks, then superstar player for superstar player and picks. And then you put that narrative out there and you say, hey, Steelers Nation, how would you feel about this? And they just point right at Nick Herbig.
Yeah, man, what an absolute beast. Some of the stuff that he is doing right now, I think it definitely frees up the opportunity to move Alex Highsmith if you wanted to do that. Okay, up next here on the Knoll Road, everybody's looking at New Orleans right now. What is their plan? Their rebuild seems like it's got to be so significant that maybe Chris Olave could be in play. We go back to the Diana Rossini report from late August, and she was talking about the Steelers are one of the teams that are calling around, and mentioned Olave and a couple of other players. So that would be awesome. He's got injury and concussion history that kind of complicates their contract negotiation. I think New Orleans is far enough back that just like the Tennessee Titans moved a player last week who appeared to be a piece of their long-term future, they're like, well, really, we're a draft and develop team until further notice. So if you want to give us good draft capital for something, or maybe it's a player that we just don't want to allocate the money for, as injury history could, that would be a lot of fun. And when I made my calls and my rounds around, I couldn't get anybody confirmed that the Steelers are on a player or anything is imminent. But everybody that I talked to said, man, Chris Olave would be, maybe best case scenario if you consider everything you're looking for.
I love Chris Olave. I absolutely, if there were no concussion protocol concerns, I would seriously consider giving up a 1 for him.
Wow.
Because if there were no concussion concerns, then he would be entering his 5th year off of 4,000-yard seasons. Like he had two to start his career, and in year 3, he was actually bettering success rate, catch percentage, average yards per target. The problem is Derek Carr was just throwing hospital balls, and he was leaving on stretchers. And I mean, he's got 5 documented, 3 last year, 5 going back to Ohio State. I think it's really more like 6 or 7. I can't believe the hit from Will Johnson wasn't one. And, you look at some of these things, then you go, okay, well, if he's willing to put his body on the line and he does take a shot like that and doesn't even end up in the protocol and doesn't have symptoms and he's fine, there's guys who talk about, yesteryear having 15, 18, 20 concussions and living to be. Not everyone is Mike Webster. Not everyone is what you think about in the $1 billion lawsuit and ends up in the worst possible situation that you could imagine. you look at some of the guys who've returned and some of these success stories, guys who've been forced to retire earlier, who've walked away from the game for these reasons. I think there's other dudes who are just going to put it on the line until the wheels fall off, come what may. And Olave, for all intents and purposes, appears to be one of those dudes who all the tests are good and he's taking hits and keeping on ticking. At the same time, that history means it can't cost a 1. It shouldn't cost a 2. It probably shouldn't even cost a 3 just because of the risk involved. And they picked up the 5th-year option. It's somewhere between like 15.5 and 16.8, pushing 17, depending on the language and depending on all the things you were talking about that go into this. But like, when you think about complimentary dudes, Olave, if healthy, is light years better than Jacobe Meyers, is light years better than Calvin Ridley. The only question is he one play away? And is this a Tua Tagovailoa, hold your breath every time he hook slides and someone still comes in high? And I think you have to think about Aaron Rodgers being able to throw the bumblebee earhole shots and keep him safe, low throws, take him to the ground, versus leaving things high against single high, where Derek Carr had to explain it away after can't guard Mike got spicy and came after him for putting Olave in harm's way again.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think you do the Olave deal. It's just a matter of what kind of draft compensation they want, and then you hold your breath that he stays healthy or is healthy by the time you get to the playoffs. But once you're dealing with that number of concussions, I wouldn't feel great about long-term, like locking the guy up to a contract. I think ideally you trade for a guy who's under contract for 2 or 3 years after this. And then when Rodgers retires, you look at that as a potential to trade the guy away, recoup some of your draft capital, and kind of re-kickstart your build. That's why the A.J. Brown thing makes so much sense to me.
I do not disagree with you at all about what you're saying, except for one thing. We only know for certain we get Aaron Rodgers for 2025. We only know for certain that Chris Olave is healthy right now, and he costs 15.5 to 17 next year, which is half roughly of Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown et al. So when you start talking about the math of it, especially if you get him for a 4 in Muth or a 3 in Muth, I mean, that's the risk that you have to weigh, because what you're asking yourself right now is, if Muth got hurt, you still have Washington and Jonnu, right? And if DK goes down, you have no one. And if we're not going to play Roman Wilson and we're going to go try to up Alan Lazard, Curtis Samuel, any of these retread type of guys, play Roman Wilson. If you're going to bring someone in, it's got to be because you're literally saying we're all in.
Yeah, and they should be right now. I think that's what Ireland showed this team, is they finally figured out how to defend a little bit and run the ball. And, there's some things that go into that are exciting and I think sustainable, but the tight ends are a disappointing storyline. Like, we talked a lot in the offseason over the summer about how, okay, you don't have a perfect wide receiver 2 answer right now, but you got some good wide receiver 3s that can, come together. And if these tight ends get the job done, then you'll be feeling pretty good about it. But it's surprising because Rodgers used tight end. I mean, Jared Cook, he had playing at a very high level and could lean on for big plays. I just don't think these guys are getting open enough for him.
Well, and then there's the time of it too, right? And the offensive line and the protection issues and everything really having to come together. And, people laugh about, or people scoff at, this isn't Madden. You can't, but you know what? It is, if you're willing to take a risk, if you're willing to put picks on the table, players on the table, eat money, because how the AFC is wide open. Right now, the Buffalo Bills, and I'm saying this as a guy who's rooting like hell to get the Super Bowl we should have got last year was Buffalo and Detroit, right? That would have been the epic showdown that everybody wanted. And obviously Detroit completely fell on their face, and Buffalo once again subject to the football gods and injury luck. If the Buffalo Bills stay healthy and they get anything at all from the sense of humor with the football gods, they are the class of the AFC right now. After that, you're literally fighting for the 2 spot. And if there's anything that goes wrong with a Bosa, God forbid Josh Allen rows an ankle, or Shakir, or any of these other, James Cook goes down, That's what's happened to Buffalo every year of the Josh Allen experience. And then he's left holding the bag after putting up a huge number in a great game where they have to change the rules or, otherwise look at how this storybook thing just got ripped away from them. You're battling that to get to the Super Bowl. Go do whatever it takes.
I like that. Up next here on the Knoll Road, here's what I think they're going to do. This is the most likely scenario, because of this ridiculous idea that you can go for it now, be all in now, and not sacrifice anything from the future. We go to Xavier Legette. He did have 49 catches for 497 yards last year, 4 touchdowns as a rookie. He's played in 2 games, has 4 catches for 8 yards. It's tough to evaluate how good anything is on Carolina. It's just functional and not very good. But I think the production from his rookie year in that crap offense does suggest the guy's got some talent. I think he can help you in the running game as well. He's a bigger bodied wide receiver. And you could probably make the case that he'd be a legitimate, second best option to DK Metcalf right now. So I don't know how excited you could get about Xavier Legette, but we did have Tim Benz on a couple of weeks ago. He said Aaron Rodgers loves to take a 4 or 5 and turn him into a 6 or a 7.
I mean, plus you're going to get some of the best press conference material of your life. The dude eats raccoons. He's foghorn, leghorn. And I say that in a complimentary, lovable way. Like, he's just a wonderful young man, personality-wise, who has all those traits as well. And he was a guy who late bloomer, late developer, late production. And then when he popped off and you put the tape against the traits, you go, well, how do you figure this out? And you would think that, the Panthers, particularly with, what their coach was able to do in his previous stop with the weapons that he had and how everyone thought, that stuff was just going to translate. Then they go get Tet. Everyone loves Jimmy Horn Jr. Hunter Renfrow, right, is over his illness. And I mean, all of a sudden that wide receiver room gets really deep. But at the end of the day, the trigger man is inconsistency. So, I mean, you start doing this, and now there's a ton of places you can go that are all going to take me into a really dark place. I was looking at, guys coming out this year like Jack Beck, guys that went, second round type picks who have traits and had production that you could go get because they're buried on a depth chart. Xavier Legette, Jack Beck, laundry list of dudes. Play Roman Wilson. Why would you go get someone else's guy who can't get on the field in someone else's room when you have a 3 in your own house? Play Roman Wilson.
Here's your L. Hold it, dude. Hold it. I know you did hashtag Roman Wilson season, but if Guy could play, they would play him. Come on, there it is for you.
I just want to draw a line. I want to draw a line and say no retreads, no other teams' backups. Move picks, move players, go get a dude opposite DK. Put up the picture of DK and AJ Brown from Ole Miss. You want to see these? You want to see these 2 dudes flexing on any secondary in the NFL? Throw that shit up. Like, I want to strike fear into opponents, not go, hey, what might we pull out of the bag this week, Artie? Like, dictate tempo, damn it.
Okay, up next here on the Knoll Road, I'll dictate some tempo to you. How about some Garrett Wilson? I feel like this is a no-chancer. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe the Jets are going to lose again this week, and they'll be 0-5. And I guess Aaron Glenn was so pissed off at him last night after getting kind of run out by Miami. He was furious, and the reporters outside the locker room could hear him. It was one of those games. But I mean, the Jets are going to ask for 2 ones. There's no way you get Garrett Wilson.
No, not two ones. Not with his number on the books and a complete 2 ones. You think for Garrett Wilson? Okay,
at that age.
Here's what I'm going to say. You're going to hate this, so you better go retweet me out in the wild. I said because who did Carney at Carney Media? I've been going back and forth with him a ton because he has a ton of great takes. He gave me a little heart, but I said Garrett Wilson over. Garrett Wilson, no matter what, hashtag draft day, right? Give me some Kevin Costner, Vontae Mack vibes all day over Chris Olave, unless the compensation is lower, over hashtag Roman Wilson season. So I actually buried Roman Wilson season publicly today. You can throw up as many L's on the YouTube stream as you want, but I put him down like I feel really, really, really mad and almost sad for the kid about it. And I think that's why I'm sitting here saying there's nobody else on your roster who's going to elevate the play of everyone around them. There are guys who are going to play inside the scheme, do what they're asked. Calvin Austin, you were hope was going to be trending in that direction. But when you get into January, when you get up against the Buffalo Bills with it all on the line, don't you want to be able to sit there and say, here's what we're doing this week, good luck, as opposed to here's what we're going to do this week, hope it works.
Well, I mean, when they thought they needed somebody to go in and make something work against Minnesota, and Calvin Austin was out, they put our guy Scott Miller in there.
Scotty.
And I think that might be the biggest indictment of a Roman Wilson possibility. I don't think it's impossible, but there's enough people over there that don't believe he's got what it takes or don't trust him. And that's fairly common with young players. Just ask your rookie running back. Let me ask you about a couple of more, bro. Obviously, Jakobi Meyers, that would be a huge home run. That might absolutely make more sense than Olave if you
would you pay him though, given his age, and he's had some injury bugaboos, not at the same level of Olave the concussions or anything crazy like a Tyreek knee, but I mean he is older and he does want to get paid wide receiver one money.
Yeah, and he's not going to get wide receiver money, but I think he could get around 20, 22, and I'd be okay with paying him that. I think the Raiders would be looking for a 1 because they don't want to move him. That's what they're going to say on the phone to you. But I think going into you're thinking a 3 or a 4 and might settle on a 2 for Jakobi Meyers. I just don't know if that's enough to get the Raiders to really deal him.
Given what we were talking about earlier with A.J. Brown and Highsmith almost straight up, maybe have to sweeten that deal in some form or function. I'd be remiss if I wasn't sitting here talking about, when you were talking about quotes and Bible verses and all this stuff, the disease of more is a real thing, right? Pat Riley going back to, and that's not what that is with A.J. Brown. He's just admitting and being honest. Like you said, it's the quiet part out loud, the thing you're not supposed to say and saying it out loud. Just to go back real quick on Garrett Wilson, the reason that you love guys like him so much is they are bona fide superstars. Garrett Wilson is a superstar. 1,000 yards, book it. 100 catches, book it with Sack Wilson. And, I mean, terrible, abysmal Mike White, like quarterback play. And when you think about Garrett Wilson, 2 1s is probably crazy, especially because he makes almost as much, like $1 million less than DK Metcalf. But would you do Highsmith in a 1? Like, how far would you go for Garrett Wilson before you go down the list of the others?
Oh, yeah, I'd do Highsmith in a 1.
I think 25 years old.
What's that?
Garrett Wilson's 25 years old. Book him for $1,000 next to DK.
Yeah.
And then if Aaron Rodgers rides off into the sunset, whoever you bring in, you're saying, hey, we got DK and Garrett Wilson. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, I think 25, 26, 27, you can still get like premium draft capital in a trade. Once you're at 28, 29, you have some injury history, and then over 30, it's like you could be a star player and get a 6th round pick back,
Sure.
Especially if you got any injury history to you. And then, when you talk about guys that are still on their rookie deals, like with 2 years remaining, that's, when you could really get into some absurd stuff because the value against the cap just becomes so ridiculous. We have to talk about Calvin Ridley. I got this story up here. Brian Callahan dropping a massive hint about Calvin Ridley's future with the Titans, but I couldn't identify exactly what he's saying here. I know last week the Titans had to talk about we're not doing a fire sale, even though they traded one of their foundational pieces.
Like,
no. Yeah, don't call us thinking we're going to trade everybody. I think they do want to trade everybody and hit a massive reset button, especially veteran players that got a little money coming to them. And Calvin Ridley would be a nice fit with Aaron Rodgers.
So Cam Ward looks like the answer, right? Despite the stats, despite the numbers, they love the way he's playing and he's showing enough. And it's one of those seasons where you're just going to throw the numbers out the window and talk about his moxie, talk about, his leadership and everything else is going to come together, but you got to build that around him. So Ridley's on the wrong side of 30. Ridley went from being the best number 2 in the league to Julio Jones getting old fast and becoming an all-pro himself to literally gambling his way out of the league. And then he got sent to football hell in Jacksonville. It was never the same. And believe it or not, as bad as he was with Will Levis, back-to-back 1,000-yard years, but in like the mid to low 50s catch rate, not success rate, catch percentage. He's down around 40 right now with the Rook. And what you're looking at in that article that you pulled up, what Callahan didn't say and what the Titans won't say publicly is what they did with Nuke last year right before they sent him to Kansas City. All of a sudden, an older player who's been a star gets a little dinged up and he gets held out of a game that other starters are playing. And Ridley only played like 41% of the snaps last week. And bang, Nuke goes to KC. So the writing on the wall or the parallel universe is that they're holding back, not wanting Ridley to hurt himself so they can move him. And they're just playing it like he's a little dinged up and he needed the break.
I mean, last year, 64 catches, 1,000 yards. The year before that, 76 catches, 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns combined. What are we looking at here? Okay, you just said it, 30 years old. And his contract is going to make him a little bit difficult to trade. I think might be exactly what you're looking for. The Steelers have cap space. And because we're going to overpay him, because you guys did a contract you don't like with him, a 6 or a 7 could get this done.
Right. And let's just do the math that, Will Levis, Cam Ward, Aaron Rodgers. So you talk about 60 to 75 catches and 1,000 yards and, 6 or 8 touchdowns opposite DK Metcalf. I mean, that is awesome. And oh, by the way, it probably won't cost you anything. It certainly won't cost you Garrett Wilson picks. It certainly won't cost you Highsmith. So as you start nosing around, what's going to be really interesting to see is whoever they do ultimately go get. And let's say they got Ridley for a 4, 5, 6. Let's say it is full fire sale mode and you get him for nothing. Then you start asking the question, well, what could you have gotten Wilson for? What could you have gotten AJ Brown for? No. What I'm saying is Ridley is good enough. Ridley still has enough left in the tank. I mean, separation, athleticism, and then he's another one of those guys like George Pickens, where because of his length, because of his athleticism, because of his bully ball, mentality, he's open even when he's covered. So he doesn't have to have, as he ages, those crazy, separation, next gen stats kind of things. And if you're going to take a run at a guy for a year and maybe just eat out the contract or buy out the contract or eat that money against the dead cap if it doesn't work out, like, they have the ability to do those kinds of things while at the same time finding out if, oh, by the way, you can just ride this guy out on what's left on his checks that he's expecting to receive.
Yeah, that might be a perfect situation. There's a lot to like in these, and the trade deadline is coming up November 4th. We are eagle-eyeing this thing the whole way for you. Please hit that bell button if you want some Steelers content and shows 3 to 4 times a week. You never miss when we upload or go live. And please consider liking that video. It helps us get some distribution. Stay tuned to our shorts, okay? The Curtain Call. It's a short series we do every week. We'll score the top plays from Steelers game day in Dublin. So if you're swiping, look out for those and leave us a comment down below on which one of these Steelers trades you'd be most wanting to see. We're back soon with more Steelers content. For New Bear, I'm Dawson. We'll see you on the Knoll Road.